So we'll call to order, and the first order of business is to approve the minutes. But before we do that, I don't think we have enough members present. Actually,
even online with the people online.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I think you do have quorum.
Okay, we got 6. Okay, we got exactly 6. Okay, so what the minutes are attached. By the way, the second page, basically the minute. So what I need is a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make them. Go ahead, Larry.
Okay, and a second.
I'll second it.
Okay. Everybody who approves say yes, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Anybody doesn't want to approve say no. Okay, minutes are approved.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So we can get into the agenda, but we have Danae and some folks from the county, Jared and Alexis, who are working on the weatherization program, are involved in that. So we wanted to have that discussion. Then Andrew Hayes should show up with a presentation on his energy performance contracts that he's doing for the city. We had an update on energy related bills that Laura was going to talk about. And then we also wanted to prepare for a work session with the city, with kind of our discussions. In the last meeting, we had this presentation from Arjun Makahani. I'm probably saying that name wrong, but he talked about renewable energy and the move to that, and it was really a inspirational type video because he's in this energy business, had done a lot of planning in Maryland on renewable energy, his perspective was they could do it there. If they can do it there, we can surely do it here in Pueblo where we get all the sunshine, right?
Well, before you go, when you said a work session, between who and the city?
Between where we present to the city.
Our committee and
so we need to talk. We're going to have a little bit of discussion on that.
Thank you.
And then we can go through the subcommittee reports. So I'm going to kick it off with our discussion with Danae and the county folks. Thanks for showing up, Danae. Thank you. What I wanted to discuss is that we're trying to get some projects going with weatherization, right? And really the city is not driving any of this. It's the county that's doing the work. So wanted to kind of connect with the county to see how we could help as an energy commission. Okay, we're really pushing electrification, and our hope is that as we do this weatherization, we're converting people to electricity. Okay, that we're converting them to heat pumps, and then we're kind of what we need to really do as a community is accelerate this stuff. And I wanted to kind of find out exactly where the county is in this. My last data point was in another group. We had a discussion with the county on this, and I think there was something like 40,000 homes that needed improvement, and you're doing them at a rate of less than 200 homes a year. Well, that's 200 years to get through that building stock, and we need to do it in about 20. Right, so by 2040, we're going to, we should be a long ways there, the lion's share done. So I wanted to talk about how we could accelerate that. We know that PCC has a program in weatherization. I assume that the county is driving that curriculum. Is that true?
No, that's not correct. So that's being driven through the Colorado Energy Office.
Okay.
They're trying to work with the Colorado Community College Association. I think that's what they're titled, to bring some sort of curriculum to Colorado. Currently, that does not exist.
Well, that'd be good.
But here's my perspective, and it may be this is just my thinking on this. Is that the government's going to have to really kickstart this, right? I mean, if we're going to need, if we need to accelerate this program by order of magnitude, do 10 times as much, we're going to need people that understand how to do this weatherization, and the training to get a person interested in going to PCC. It's not it's a one semester class, right? It's not a long duration thing. It could be if you wanted to get high vac validation, all this, that the county is probably going to need to take these people on as employees, or they need a job, right? They need a job path just to see success. So we need to.
When you said the state needs to,
well,
what do you mean by that?
Well, I'm saying, so the Colorado Energy Office is getting these things kickstarted, but it's a community that needs to build to build a demand for the people.
Okay, so that's why your question. Thank you.
And I'm thinking that the government might be the first place to kind of engage people. So is it through an internship or something like that?
Is the county doing this through the county, or are you doing it through private companies that do weatherization?
It's a federally funded program, and the actual grantee is Colorado Energy Office, and then we are a sub-grantee of theirs.
And are you employing private companies, or are you doing it through the?
No, so it's all county employees.
Okay.
I guess there's a lot within this compensation. So I would say the fundamental concept and purpose of weatherization, absolutely valid and needed. The program itself, as Lexi mentioned, it's grant funded. We operate in all of southeastern Colorado, so we're one region out of 7 in the state network. So we cover all of southeastern Colorado. The reason, I was probably in those conversations a few years back, indicating there's X amount of potential houses ready for weatherization, qualified individuals, and then our rate of service delivery. It's all grant funded. They're 100% county employees. And so I think there's probably two sides of this conversation. I just don't know which way you want us to steer it.
Yeah, well, I think my reason for bringing you folks in was just to start that conversation, right? Not to say that here's a group of people for working on energy in the city that's concerned about this. How can we help with that? Because you're serving low and moderate income folks, right? Mainly the low income folks. So we need to figure out how to do this for everybody. Now it's easy on the folks that can afford these things, but the demand for this weatherization is going to be gigantic.
Oh yeah.
So how do we make the students that are going through this program see that, right? And how do they get hired? All that. So it's going to be slow to start, but it's going to be an
you have a kind of a projection as to how many employees you're going to employ?
We have 3 crews right now with 3 folks on each one. However, we have a couple vacant positions right now. So that's what we're running. And then there's the furnace specialist.
I'm just running through ideas through my head. If PCC starts a program and there's 20 people in the program each semester, that's 40 people per 2 semesters. Are you going to be able to employ these people coming out of that program?
So being grant funded, we're allocated what the state has available.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So that's part of our limitations. Right now, we are in a little bit of a growth period due to the Build Better Act, similar to our 2000, 2013, that time frame. So during that point, we employed close to 30 individuals. Right now, we're at about 18. And we do project to see some increases over the next 3 to 5 years. Would it be able to sustain?
Because I'm kind of just following Ken's thinking in terms of expanding the need is there, but expanding the service. How do we go about it? Because we need the graduates and we need the employees. If the grants aren't going to cover the need, and we can only do what, 200 a year, and we're stuck.
You know, we explored, this is a kind of a different track, but we explored using this Buildings Up grant, right, which is coming out of the Department of Energy, that, you know, they're offering, they call them a prize, right, because they really, as long as you had a good idea, they would fund it. But, you know, the basic premise is electrification, right? That grant was $400,000, and we got real excited about it. It's not going to happen, by the way, because the deadline is the 18th of July, and we really don't have a good scope of work for it. So there's a ton of these things, these money around this weatherization that's coming down the pipe with the Inflation Reduction Act. I mean, there's all kinds of incentives to improve and electrify, and we thought, you know, we as a city and county ought to at least have a strategy about this, right?
Before you go any further, why?
No, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
On that note, I just want to make sure that I point out that the city of Pueblo actually has a grant writer on staff. The county doesn't necessarily have a grant writer on staff per se. So if we want to talk about collaboration, we know that there's already a program that exists through a grant at the county. Whether or not we could expand that or not, I would defer to the experts in the room from the county who've been doing this actual work. I'm still only about a month in. But maybe collaborating with the city and see, as you're talking about all these different opportunities and monies that are available out there for this type of work, maybe that's how the city ties into some of this, is utilizing that grant writer to help find those grants. I'm just kind of spitballing off the top of my head here right now, but you know, I just don't think the idea that there's going to be a bunch of people going through a college program and the county can just absorb them all and expand this program, that's not realistic, I think, without real conversations about actual funding revenue to do this.
Yeah.
And before we go,
defer to my friends from the county in the room.
Why aren't we able to apply for that 400,000? We got more than a month.
I think the main reason is that we don't have a person really driving it. You know, I mean, the policy committee kind of talked about it. Laura made a general proposal, but we didn't really have somebody to watch this. Now, another thing the city is in the process of doing, and maybe Alyssa can give us an update on this, is that they were going to hire a part-time person working on energy issues for the city.
Interviews are coming up. They're scheduled on the 14th.
Okay. So that resource is a part-time resource. Is going to become available to help in these issues too. So I think, you know, as a commission, you know, maybe we ought to help prioritize that work a little bit.
Yeah.
And I had some ideas on that. We can talk later. So I guess why I wanted to get this, you know, county city group together was to get this conversation going. I think Danae pointed out a great idea. I think it's Luann Martinez is the grant writer for the city, and she's got a table of grants, things that she can accomplish, things that she can't. So you know, she's feeding from a fire hose and stuff too. This energy commission, this energy office person will help. As a policy as a member of the policy committee, I just got this new job of being chair of this organization. So this is my first go around of it. I was chair of the policy committee, and we talked about creating a energy office for the city. But to do that would take council approval. There's just so much opportunity from a grant standpoint that I don't want to see us missing those opportunities. Now, there's a capacity issue with the city too, is that grant writer can only do so much, as most people in the city. So they've got more than they get accomplished. I mean, they want to, but there's a capacity issue there. So and
in terms of cooperating with the county, we have the grant writer. When you see an opportunity for a grant, bring it to the energy committee. The energy committee could, I'm just thinking, take it to the energy office, and the office can work with the grant writer to get that accomplished.
Yeah, I think.
And then when we see that, we can collaborate on where that service is going to go. Because I assume you already have that. You might have a list of people that are qualified already.
Right. So it's an application-based program. So every customer has to apply.
Yeah.
So there's
and generous from the city and county.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I would say maybe from the perspective of weatherization, being that I spent close to 12 and a half years directly in the program, not to sound arrogant, but I feel like we are subject matter experts in what we do. And so I think utilizing that, as well as a proven track record of program and service delivery that works, an approach to reducing energy within residential structures. So I think that would be the low-hanging fruit as far as just conversations, because I agree, I think it's going to have to start figuring out whatever the intent is, where is the energy put to establish this mindset around reducing energy, improving our housing stock, because if you've worked in homes, the houses we have here are of significant age. So they're ripe with opportunity for energy improvement. So if there's programming that's developed within the community college, I think that's one component. I think another component is also working with contractors, both new build, remodel, things like that, because the base of weatherization is building science. It's a whole nother technical aspect that complements construction. Those two practices don't always overlap, and it's hard to get those in place. It takes time to learn, to understand, a whole different mindset. So I think the new building codes that were just adopted, the 2021, I haven't really dug into the energy code, but I think that might also be some opportunity to build off of to try to get that grassroots movement to shift our mind, to shift our approach.
Yeah.
Just to get a better definition, you said the energy weatherization program is to reduce the energy in the envelope. How far do you go? Because I know everyone knows about weather stripping, but sometimes storm windows are needed. Sometimes you can't weather strip a door. The door's no good. Right. I understand maybe even do some attic insulation or wall insulations. Is that correct?
So weatherization is a full scope energy assessment. So everything we do is driven through pressure diagnostics, so blower doors, duct blasters, other diagnostic tests within duct systems, things like that, pressure boundaries. But it's really site specific, so it's based to the need of the home. So we do anything from attic insulation, exterior sidewall insulation, subspace insulation, floor, foundation wall, a lot of air sealing. We do weather stripping around doors, but that's kind of that component of the building science.
Do you do blankets on hot water heaters? Do you insulate the hot water pipes also?
When it's appropriate, yes.
Okay, but as far as replacing hot water heaters, as you know, there's a lot of grant out for that. Are you replacing any hot water heaters or furnaces with heat pumps?
So we do water heater replacements when it's a health and safety issue. We also do furnace replacements. And so right now we're installing primarily 95% AFU gas furnaces. The beneficial electrification we do right now, we're in the pilot phase of introducing air source heat pumps. Being that we work with low-income individuals, we're not going to just change their fuel source for electrification and put them in situations where the rates are excessive.
If I may, just a follow-up question where you're headed. As you know, the state and the federals are also, and I forget which one, are putting together electrical panel upgrades. So, you know, if I do have a water heater, you could put in a heat pump. I'm going to need an electric, probably a 220, 240 in there to do that. With that new grant money, would that be a possibility? Because that's given for the landlord to do it, because the ones we're really after are the landlord-driven, low-income people. That seems to be where the best bang for the buck is. But have you looked into the possibility of using that money to encourage the landlord? And then also, is there any solar landlord rebates that could be given to offset the electric load?
So we don't really pursue grants outside of our allocation with the Colorado Energy Office. I don't think that's something we can't look into for sure. But anyone that's receiving solar or air source heat pumps, right now they have to be homeowners, and that's based on Colorado Energy Office requirements.
Sure.
So those tenant situations, we're not really focused on those at this moment.
So even if there's a rebate from Black Hills, you don't look into that? Like if you replace my furnace, I mean, you know, anybody, I mean, it's 8.5 by 11, 10 question deal. You don't pursue that?
So we collect rebates based on certain criterias, but they go directly to the state, which then refunds the program.
Sorry for all the questions, but
no, you're good.
I wanted to better understand what you do
right.
in better to understand the conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think that, you know, the problem is so big, right? It takes everybody, it takes the community to work on it, right? So, I mean, as you brought up, the renter aspects of this, right? And, I think we need to think about that. As a matter of fact, in our policy committee, we talked about this, and there's some ideas. I don't know, it needs some more development, I guess is what I'm saying. But we all need to work together. You know, everybody in this energy field. What we don't want to do is put a gigantic energy burden on a family that already has an energy burden, right? We don't want to make it worse. So I understand that.
If I may, I just would say, there's also the retrofitting that you have to do to make something energy efficient is pretty substantial. The investment substantial. I don't know, Larry, if you were. I think you were we were at CML recently, and the Energy Outreach Colorado actually did some retrofitting for a house, both made it electrified the house and made it more energy efficient. The price tag at the end of the day was like $72,000.
$72,000.
Yeah, I think you might be interested to hear from them just kind of all that they did. It was really an interesting case study, but I also think it kind of shined a light on how difficult it can be for some of these older homes to both bring them up to code, or not to bring them up to electrification, and to
even at half the price it would be.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I could probably connect us with Jennifer Grimmert. I'm sure she'd be happy to share that with us.
Maybe what we should do is have that have a presentation like that in one of our future meetings.
I will. I'll take that.
Okay, thank you.
Does anybody, just to follow with that real fast, Habitat for Humanity uses volunteers sometimes, and we've seen that where you get someone to pull the permit, a master electrician or whatever the case is, and if we can get an army of volunteers. I was in Denver when they built like 7 houses in a week, and I was up on a roof when it rains there, and I never been on the roof putting in OSB. My wife was putting in windows, and she's never put in windows. But the point being is, we seem to, everybody wants to do that, but that army of volunteers and you got to treat them great. Like, I'm going to use the United Way. I've been involved why they treat their volunteers great. Boys and Girls Club just great. Other ones you show up and it's kind of like, oh, we don't know what, we don't have a leader and things. But anyway, I just want to remind anybody, and it's fashionable if you can use the right marketing. We all talk about marketing on it, but I just wanted to bring that up because that takes that $70,000 bill, right, 3/4 of that labor, weather stripping, windows even, go hire somebody. You're getting $40-50 an hour for somebody to put in windows or doors or touch your plumbing.
It must come
to just a note. I'm sorry. I know that Commissioner Escar's time with us is limited. So if there's anything that the group wants to chat about with her while she's on, I suggest you do that because I know she has to go. And we thank her for having other county representatives who are very knowledgeable in the room with us. So thank you.
Thanks, Alyssa, for kind of keeping the time check on this. One thing that came up, and we were talking about this before the meeting started, was Britain has this program, Insulate Britain. And we were thinking about, let's start a program, Insulate Pueblo. So, that we could kind of put some community outreach in this, right? Tell people that these things are available and they need to sign up for it. And not only should we be, we should serve all the communities of Pueblo and make them aware of what they need to do to get ready for electrification, right? And if we can push it further along, this electrification idea, that would be great if we could start doing that more.
Well, Janaya, everything I said was meant for you also. And one thing I see our relationship in our group anyway, I don't know, I can't talk for the city of Pueblo, but is more of a keep in touch between the county and the city. We can interchange funds. We can't do, but keep in touch so we're not doubling up on things. And then also, so we have a good working relationship because, we may lose our grant writer tomorrow because of funding or our energy person. You may do the same thing. And, but I think maybe a monthly meeting of a few of your people from the county and a few of our group, and include maybe someone from the council if they'd like to, or mayor's office other than us.
I think your point of contact would be through Alyssa, by the way. So, if you want, if we want to set up some meeting or you need a grant to be looked at.
Keep in mind the cooperation, as I saw it, was we are going to have a person in an energy office, and that would be the contact person by which we give direction to, hopefully, and that person would give our suggestions to the mayor. And when your opportunities come up, say you hear about a grant of some sort, that's one thing. And then coordinate with that office in terms of the services that you're providing, and coordinate with us and the office as to how we can do it together.
So before I jump, sorry, I've tried to jump in a few times here. Before I have to jump, I just want to make sure that you all understand that the two people you have sitting at the table right now are the folks that have been doing this for a while and are the boots on the ground. And I think that we're open to having those conversations about how we can expand what we're doing. I would just ask that if you all want to have another meeting, that kind of is through your folks reaching out to us. They're literally busy every day doing the work that they're doing. But if this board wants to collaborate, I think we're happy to do so. I think we're happy to have those conversations. We just don't have necessarily the admin to be the ones connecting folks looking for those grants besides the grants they're already working on. I don't want to speak for them, but I also just want to make sure that we're not putting more work on them just because their entity exists right now. So I'm happy to continue. I'm happy to continue these conversations and coming back anytime you all want me to be here. I think most of you around this table know that energy issues have always been a driving passion of mine since before I was even elected into the state office. So I'm here to have those conversations and help out. I'm sorry I have to jump on this meeting for another meeting I have at 4:30, but I have full trust and faith in the two folks you've got in the room from the county representing the county. And I think that honestly, they would love to put all of our heads together and figure out how we can collaborate to get more houses completed, to get more folks with the assistance that they need. So I will just kind of check back in with them and see if there's any updates that I need to do as well. So sorry to jump in and dump it on you, but I've got to jump, but I want to make sure you know that I appreciate being here and look forward to doing more work.
Thanks, Danae. Thank you so much. Again, making the connections, kind of, thinking about how we should handle this from a community standpoint, and we need to accelerate. I guess how do we do that? It's a big ask.
Can I ask when this commission was formed?
A couple of years ago, about this time. And I think we've been doing some interesting things. One of them, Andrew Hayes from the city is going to talk about, which was another round of energy performance contracts for the city buildings. So kind of the same idea, right?
The commission was formed in March of last year.
March, okay. March of last year?
So what year? A few months, yeah.
No, so
I think
it just seems long. God, that's unbelievable. I thought I was thinking 2 years too.
I'll double check it then.
Yeah, you're probably right.
It was right in the kind of the middle of coronavirus, right? So okay. Let's go on to the I was doing a segue, by the way.
I was trying to see if I was missing my cue here. Happy to jump in. For anybody I haven't met, I'm Andrew Hayes, the Director of Public Works of the city. Thanks for letting me jump in for a second with kind of an update on energy assessments. We've been talking previously about energy performance contracts as a vehicle to kind of get some of that done. And since that initiative started, there's been an opportunity through Black Hills to work through a strategic energy management program and a cohort that they've essentially established that was really focused on governmental energy. So both the city and the county public works departments right now are going through this process. And so about every 2 months-ish or so, we're meeting in person to kind of talk about issues and learn and do some things. So it's really kind of meant to bring awareness to different levels of city staff about energy consumption, use, how to operate facilities more efficiently, how to identify opportunities, how to conduct assessments, all those kinds of things. We've had our first meeting for this cohort already. I don't know if you even know.
I'm aware of it.
All right. So we had our first meeting. Our next one. Yes. You did it.
Yeah, I did it.
So Monday's our second meeting. But in the time from our first and second meeting, we've actually started 3 different assessments on 3 of our facilities. These come at Black Hills compliments, Black Hills compliments, I suppose.
Through the energy efficiency program. So this is all driven through Patty Olenek. If some of you are aware of Patty, she drives our energy efficiency programming, and this is all provided through the energy efficiency programs that we all pay for, every one of us.
And how soon will those 3 buildings be?
They've been assessed. So we're finishing the reports now. Assessed.
On paper, or has someone been at the site of
the buildings?
Wow.
So they went to the building. I mean, they were pretty quick.
As you know, that's been a passion of our group, so it's good to hear.
They went to, so the 3 buildings that we looked at were City Hall, which was not included in our last round of energy audits 10 years ago or so. PMJC as well was under construction at the time, or just recently built after that, when those assessments were going on. The other one is Fire Station 4, which is a relatively newer fire station down on Lake Avenue, right there near St. Mary Court.
So what was the second one? The municipal
PMJC, the Pueblo Municipal Justice Center, the police and court building. So that building is also relatively new, 15-ish, not quite 15 years old, I believe. And it's a major energy consumer, maybe not for good reasons. And so that's partly why we wanted to look at that. We knew there were some issues going on with HVAC, for instance, in there. So they've gone through and done at least an initial analysis. So we're going to see the results of the reports coming out here very shortly. So Monday's our next meeting. As I mentioned, in this case, it's focused on municipalities and government entities. So the city and the county both have public works staff participating in the cohort. It's been helpful so far. So we were one of the things that's come out of that is I think it's provided a little bit better pathway to trying to identify strategies, I guess, for collecting the energy consumption data for our facilities and doing something productive with that data, right? So part of what we're getting out of this is the actual collection of that data. I mentioned that on the 14th, I think it's Friday the 14th, we're having the interviews for that energy office, for the energy part-time position. So that'll be coming online soon. Using that person, and I've also got some young, smart interns from CSU Pueblo right now that are, I guess, interested in pursuing engineering careers. And so they are doing a number of different things out doing field work with buildings, with road projects, but they're also, a couple of them are working on some of the energy data crunching. So got some different things kind of going on to try to, I guess, identify the biggest targets of opportunity for both cost savings and for energy footprint, energy consumption, and intensity reductions for facilities as well. So that's right at the front end. Because this is kind of just starting, or it was offered without the commitment of having to pay for those assessments, we're going through this process to see how they're going first. We've still got the ability to go forward with CEO and use the energy performance contracts as a mechanism as well. We can do a broader assessment with those. We can narrow the scope down based on some of the data we're collecting now. So we've got different opportunities going forward for those. So it's still a tool in our belt that we can use.
So do you plan on pursuing this Colorado Energy Office approach?
Right. Potentially. And so I think what we're trying to see, not trying to abuse Blackill's good nature, but we got 3 buildings, it's 3 big ones. And so they were able to take care of the initial assessments. I'd like to see kind of the level of detail that's brought forward there. I haven't seen that yet, so we're going to find that real soon. If it's for low-hanging fruit and that kind of thing.
Are there going to be recommendations for energy savings?
That's my understanding. So they're going to identify a slate of projects. Okay. But again, I don't know within the scope of the assessment how detailed they were. And so we'll know more soon. Once I see that, if we are in need of greater detail, we can certainly go to CEO route or expand the footprint of other buildings, other city footprint in using the CEO tools as well.
I mean, I call it kind of the Pareto analysis, right? You pick your worst ones, right? And you work on those. I mean, because that's probably 80% of the problem.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So, I mean, that's a good approach.
And we knew these 2 large buildings, City Hall and Fire Station 4, were not previously assessed. PMJC was also under construction at the time, so it was, and actually City Hall was being renovated at the time. So all of them were kind of off the table.
That's what Johnson Controls did there.
That's the Johnson Controls one.
Yeah.
Okay. Fire Station 4 is interesting because it's also got a geothermal system installed. And so getting some different takes on some different building systems was kind of our thought there. As you're aware, we're still working through design right now on the other fire stations. So geothermal is still part of that with the net zero approach that's been proposed. Solar is certainly, we're trying to figure out how much energy it's going to take to keep the bays warm and in the wintertime. On our coldest days, there are similar stations, I guess, up in Adams County, I believe, or in Arvada, one or the other, where they're not able quite to keep the temperature at the level they want. So in the wintertime, when trucks come back with snow and ice, getting everything melted and back into working order is an important functional consideration. They try to keep them at 65 degrees, which sounds tropical when it's 0 outside.
Do they have all glass doors?
Well, it's not the glass. They got to open the doors.
No, I'm just asking, are the doors all glass to bay doors?
I don't know.
Because that's a big problem.
So
are they solar?
They are all solar. And so the question was about, they've certainly got enough solar panels to be able to take care of the energy needs for the facility. But there was a question about the auxiliary heat that might be needed to keep the bays warm enough on those coldest days. And so there's some questions out there right this minute about that piece, whether there's enough room to do more solar or not. So they're looking at that.
How about your gas? Did you relook at that gas generator instead of a battery?
No. So the generators are.
Just a reminder, because I work for Excel, you're going to get a monthly bill from Excel, whether you use it or not.
Demand.
You're also going to have to inspect that once a month, being an emergency building, and it's not going to be a firefighter does. You're going to have a certified guy to test that every single month to make sure. And during a flood, unless you put that on the roof, now you got a gas generating problem. And the other one I told you is a joke. How did they fire those gas generators? With a battery. You know, so if you put Tesla makes a battery size of that TV, you put in the garage to take care of all your emergency. You got solar, so you can recharge that always. A gas generator, you know.
I think there's also a presumption maybe that the batteries are maintenance free, and that's not the case here.
Oh, they are.
So
there are. When's the last time my phone? I've had this phone for 3 years. I never had to have it. My battery may take. They're 20 years. Those Tesla batteries. They put them in cars.
Well, you're hearing that.
But anyway, I'm just giving you such a passion because if we're trying to get rid of gas, but our brand new fire stations are going to have natural gas in them. But anyway, I had to just say that. Go ahead.
So this 100% actually means 97%. We got to be realistic. You know, there's if you really think about it, there's got to be an alternative source. The
hope is that it would be electric. Right? I mean,
yeah.
We've pursued this clearly with the objective of trying to achieve reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, particularly, right?
Sounds good.
We are way beyond the point of payback. There's no payback for this project. So I mean, is that right? we are beyond that point.
And repeat that. What?
We are. So we have pursued this particularly.
The net zero.
The net zero with the objective of trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and to be on a renewable source of energy, right? But this is not a payback exercise anymore. So when we look at this, I know we talk about the cost being one of the major factors, and we're at 39-ish million, I think, right now for 3 fire stations, and part of our concern is certainly also making sure that while we're trying to achieve those objectives, we're also maintaining the reliability and resilience of these particular facilities because they are mission critical. These are our absolute emergency responders.
So the most important part is the building science behind this. Yeah. To build them as much as a passive solar building as possible.
Very much.
Yeah. Just one other thing, if you check, I think I mentioned to you, the battery is about the same price. Another thing, I can go to this fire station and I can disable a battery that's in their bay. I'm not going to be able to disable. I can go to any gas generator, anybody can, and you just cut the wires between there. So again, you're taking an emergency building and make it catastrophically dead, because they won't have any backup.
There's enclosures.
I was on the fire department in Florence. Each one of those trucks have an electric generator on them, because when they get out and they need the lights on, they got generators right there. So each one of those trucks also has a backup generator if they needed them. Of course, they're diesel or gas fired, but anyway, I had to throw that. It's just my passion, and I used to work for Excel. Shows how. I don't care if they make a penny. They shut that coal plant down or never have natural gas. That's a dying industry.
I think, we have to be realistic what we build today. We want our fire stations to be operational 24/7. That's an imperative. But we also need to kind of look to the future too, right? And as you're saying, those fire trucks today is probably not practical to make them electric. But 20 years from now, they're going to be electric.
They're out there.
Yeah, they make rechargeable.
About 3 years of wait time to get
bottle.
Well, but that's going to change, is what I'm saying, right? It's going to become the standard, and also, like Eddie's saying, is that those electric vehicles are also a source of power for you. So there's your standby power. Right?
Like all their other vehicles probably should be. All their, the Chiefs one, and it should all be electric because they just plug them in. So
what the future is going to have is we're all going to own EVs, and we're going to have them plugged in, and you know, it could be supplying energy to the grid too. Right? So
and these when would they be finished? It's going to be about about a year, way more.
So we're anticipating starting construction in early 24. So we're probably late 25. Yeah. And there's some offset between them. So I'm trying to figure out the best contract strategy, I guess, whether they're going to build one and move on to the next, or they're going to build the foundation day out and then start the second one a month later, 6 months later, whatever, something like that. But working with the offerers when the proposals come out to figure out how that's actually getting structured.
And I appreciate your patience with me, but even look at how much has changed in the last year. All this stuff we're talking about now, most of it there was no reality to a lot of this stuff. And from a year from now, you know, a lot of things are going to change. So maybe if nothing else, have them give you a design for both. It won't cost that much on the engineering side.
They've at least done the initial work.
And but keep that in mind. We'd appreciate it. And I you know, my passion is just you know, it goes against everything our commission, you know, is get rid of the fossil fuels.
And it's not running on that excess.
No,
a very rare occasion.
And again, I appreciate your patience with them.
yeah, I should you know, make a statement too for the Energy Commission was based on achieving 100% renewable energy by 2035. Okay, so that's the goal of this commission. That's kind of our calling charter, right? So we're really pushing, you know, renewables, and of course, you know, Black Hills is the energy provider, so you know they need to be on that same path, right?
Yep.
Go ahead, Al.
So are you planning to do an energy assessment at the wastewater plant?
Right, we had kind of talked about that. So if we are doing the CEO stuff, we got feedback that was something we could do. We could partner with you to incorporate one of waterworks facilities into a city assessment of some kind. Well, ultimately, the assessment is probably the easy part. It's sorting out how we select or don't select projects following that assessment. So that's the part we have to figure out. But in terms of regulatory issues, it didn't seem to be anything to stop us from being able to work.
Just a quick comment, Andrew. As a member of the United States Green Building Council, I think after your first year, to see how things are going to run well, I'd really like to track what you're doing, if possible, and in the end, maybe even have do a presentation about the building in a broader audience, because I think that brings a lot to Pueblo. And I think what you're doing is marvelous. I really do.
Fire station specific?
Well, no, there haven't been very many fire station specifics. There are lead fire stations that we have one or more. I'm sure you know we have one, but nothing to the extent that you're going to attempting a sort of, you know, 97% or whatever you call it, but pretty close to net zero.
Yeah.
And that's fair. I mean, we can't, it's very, very hard now to get to really a serious 100%, but we can get to the point where we can be 100% at some point in time, or we can just say we tried and we're part of that first wave. So if we can track this, and we want to make sure, we don't want to, you know, promise something and not be able to deliver it, of course, but if we can do something which will give the city some benefit, I think we should do that, because I've been in Pueblo a long time, as you can tell, but I think this is a really amazing thing that you're doing. Just to see the lead buildings that we've seen already, and to try to get contractors to start to look at doing better code work. We can go beyond code. That's not hard to do. It's just a matter of having the will to do it. And you're going well beyond a lot of that. And that's really, I just want to say I'm very appreciative of it, and like to stay engaged with you. And if we can bring some of the university students from CSU, from Hussam's, Al-Sharif's classes, to see what you're doing, would be really terrific. To see so many things are really possible.
In terms of the fire stations, commissioning is a big part of trying to make sure that we are meeting those objectives, right, setting that baseline. So tracking what's happening with that first.
Do you have a separate commissioning agent?
It's part of the plan here is to have a third-party commissioning agent come in and test the systems and make sure that we're meeting the benchmarks that we set.
Yeah, terrific. There's a lot of self-certifying going on, and that's probably better to have a third party going on.
Sure. Some of this, obviously, we're still in design right now, and so they're finalizing. Site layouts are basically done. Building systems have been basically identified. There are still details we're working through on each of the individual sites, but it's going forward well. And
there's some
tested commissioning part.
If there's some point at which you need some specialized assistance, there are some folks that are lead fellows that are quite good at dissecting things and looking at quickly. I mean, I know you probably got your hands full of experts, and that's all you need is another one.
This team's been very good so far.
Great.
I will say that we focus an awful lot on what I would call the lead AP part of it, right, and not so much the lead O&M part.
Yeah.
And so once we have these facilities up and running and we're taking care of them in the future, how do we continue to maintain, again, the efficiency, what we set out to do at the beginning and operate, and over the life cycle, we maintain what we had said.
And as you're doing performance evaluations on other lead buildings, I'm extremely interested in that.
Okay.
Because I think that we haven't been as good at following up lead projects as we could be. We get the certification, it gets paid for, and then sort of like, okay, we're done. But I think it's important to follow these things. And the Justice Building hasn't been the greatest, but it's another attempt.
And I don't know that the PMGC facility was constructed to a LEED standard, but we've got. I don't think there have been any new vertical construction projects, like substantial vertical construction projects in the city since that. These 3 fire stations will represent the first big effort since then. And potentially a fourth, if we can get the land and get things going for fire station number 1 as well, would be the next one, likely large project. But again, with the same mindset that we're looking forward, trying to get to a net zero product at the end is still the goal there.
Great. Yeah, great.
It kind of leads into the other half of the question I think I got asked to answer or discuss was kind of electrification of city facilities and installation of solar generation facilities as part of kind of the city's strategy here. So far, we've been working, there's been expressed interest in doing so, right? I don't know that we've got a plan yet to install specific city-owned facilities anywhere. We've been trying to work with our existing partners, I guess, trying to feel those out a little bit and make sure I've got a good understanding of what we already have as well. We've got 2 different community solar garden projects that we've been working on, or that we have in place that have been, I guess, energy rates haven't climbed as high as they anticipated they would in those contracts, and so we haven't seen the costing. So we're in the middle of adjusting our rates. I actually got to work with Laura a little bit. She helped out. She's on the phone. So Laura helped out with some advice on kind of approaching an amendment to the agreements there for that. So that's been helpful. But there's been expressed interest, particularly in like our garage facilities and certain city buildings where there's room for installation of solar, trying to identify grant opportunities that might help us offset that cost. There's been a fairly recent change in the cities can now also take advantage of tax breaks.
Are you looking at a utility scale solar project to fund all of the buildings?
The ideas that have
in total?
The ideas that have been put on the table have been varied. Some of them have been facility specific and just, some of the things like the parking facility doesn't necessarily consume a lot of energy, but it's got a lot of area. And so you produce more there than you consume. Some of them have been to offset specific facilities. Obviously the fire station, we talk about this as part of the construction, but even retrofitting existing buildings and trying to find.
Where does Black Hills fit in, John?
So I don't know if you recall, Larry, I'm not sure if you were here, but at one point Devin did give a presentation and he talked a little bit about, how he could see the city achieving 100% renewable. And his first recommendation was using community solar by being an off-taker of those projects, because we are building those community solar gardens regardless. So, and when I say we, I don't mean us, we don't own them. Yeah. As you know, very similar to over there on the east side.
Yeah.
Developers develop those projects. They look for off takers to help them finance it, and they would rather have subscribers like the city because you guys are good customers to pay, right? And so that was one recommendation, is to take as much as you can off of those, and to look at the meters that the city has that are beneficial for that sort of use. And then the second recommendation was, after that, then working with developers and third parties, because you want somebody to monetize that tax credit to make those projects more affordable. So where do we fit in? The answer is we fit in on the front end. We're going to be at 70% renewable by 2035 or 2030. I don't say the number wrong, but the other is that we are building these other solar gardens that you could be off takers on to help reduce your usage of that 70-30 energy mix, right? I mean, you'll have more solar if you, so that's how we fit it. Does that make sense?
And just to follow up, John and I have talked about the community solar gardens, and we had kind of a little debate about, I'm hoping the city will include us in the discussions. And one thing, that I was real negative on is this 20-year deal. Even with Excel, when I worked for Excel, when they buy power from other places or natural gas, it's usually a year contract and you get your best deals. And as I mentioned, as you know, the first contract was about 8%. I'm guessing you can make them at 10%, 12%. But if you would go to the same gardens, if I was, if I had one or I was part of it, and the city said, well, we just want a year or two contract rather than this 20-year deal. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to have a 20-year deal, but the price keeps going down. But get a 2-year deal, and I think they'll love that, with an option to get it, or a 1-year deal, and with an option to get it at a better rate. And I would hope that we could help in just the discussion part, because everybody's making a big deal of these solar gardens. It's just wheeling. Excel's, Wheel, Black Hills, Wheels Power. Excel makes money because they distribute. Black Hills. They make more. Well, they probably do. Excel makes more money on distributing somebody else's gas. We don't do we do in Texas, but than we do if we actually sell it at the meter. So it's a distribution. They have to use Black Hills electric wires to do that. So Black Hills really wants this, and I think the city could use that until we say, hey, we got some funds, we can build them $500,000 solar, right around here that'll feed these buildings here. And that's one thing, with you being so close, you could actually distribute to yourself without breaking the franchise because you can cross right away. The city can. No one else can other than Black Hills. Or Excel.
So I think the question is, do we use Black Hills to build these solar gardens for us, or does the city own them?
Well, like he said, they don't build. Or you and I could build one, and then we have to be in their distribution.
I know a power purchase agreement, but
there are two different kind of arrangements. And one of them is, again, using the developers, where the city constructs its own and operates its own. And that's a possibility, but with whom, with what resources, we just need to figure that piece out. The returns might be better, right? Like we're paying for the administration of and the maintenance of those facilities if we're a subscriber. So the returns aren't quite as good. Like I say, in this particular case, we're working on amending those agreements. Pricing structure is preset in there, just prefixed rate for 20 years. It didn't, the way the market went, it didn't. Black Hills is cheaper than our rates in that contract. They have honored the rate and they've kept it where it's right. But
whatever makes the best economic sense for the city, I would say, would be the route you want to go.
We're looking at both. So,
and if I could just say generally, those, when you're dealing with these solar gardens, you're working with the developer to develop that contract, right? I think it's perfectly reasonable to try and negotiate the best deal for the city and say, hey, we want to review this contract every 5 years. You just have to understand that the reason those are 20-year contracts are typically because that's how the developers get their financing. They want to be able to demonstrate that those projects are going to be financially viable. And so that's where it comes in.
Sure.
And that's where the city has the opportunity. I mean, to you have a city attorney who's very skilled in doing
and we
that.
feel for that, but it's, it's kind of like, buying a car. Anyway. You want a 10-year loan or you want a 3-year loan?
Well, we have this.
One thing, let me just mention, everyone's forgetting, Excel's got so much solar out there. You know how it wouldn't be any problem for them to cut loose a megawatt and call it a solar garden and change it from the deregulation side, and Black Hills would jump right on. It's on their distribution right now. So you have to remember this whole solar gardens. All it is wheeling power. Don't let anybody fool you. There's no, the utilities companies been doing it forever, buying electric. Well, Black Hills, 80% of their electricity prior to that gas generator was coming off of Excel, and approximately. So again, just a reminder, and you and I talked about the first contracts. You weren't even getting your 8%. No one seemed to go to them and say, "Hey, you broke the contract. You weren't even giving us our 8%." But anyway, all I'm interested, we're serious about these contracts, and we don't do long-term contracts with just because that those investors like myself, I could be an investor in a solar garden now, but don't feel sorry for me and give me a 20-year deal. It's putting the city at risk, because that puts all the people that live in the city, all the people that pay taxes, all the people that buy stuff, puts them all at risk.
Well,
so just to note that it is 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
and you are on number 4 on your agenda. So you have 45 minutes of material left and 15 minutes to do it in. Just so you know.
Okay.
I've got to leave, but I just want to thank you.
Thank you so much. Do you have a card?
Yeah, I have a couple cards.
I just want to give one for everybody.
Yeah.
Just gonna take a picture of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Pass it around, but I would love to spin up a couple here.
Yeah, thank you, Jerry.
Go ahead. Go on. I'll do that.
Okay, so Laura, do you want to give an update, or shall we postpone this for another meeting? I assume that's you on the phone.
Hi, Ken.
Hi.
We'll save that for another meeting if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do that. One thing that we do need to do is prepare for a presentation to a work session. So in one of our future meetings, I would say the next meeting that we're not going to have enough time really to get into that. I'd like to put that kind of at the front of the agenda, so we can talk about that.
It's set for.
It's not. Well,
we better set it first before we.
Alyssa had 2 time frames, one in August, one in September.
Yeah, I was going to say they're pretty far out. We can't get it worked out in the next couple of weeks or months.
Well, the next meeting is in August, right?
Yeah.
So we probably ought to plan for the September meeting. Would be my.
And I would need to get you scheduled if you want to be in September, because otherwise those spots will fill. The options are Tuesday, September 5th, or Monday, September 11th.
That would be a good presentation.
And are both of those recorded sessions?
They're all recorded and televised now. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why don't we
make a motion? Can we make a motion to have her set one for us? We can always say no. They got 10 other people on.
9/11 doesn't sound like a good day to do it.
Okay, let's do. Is it the 7th? Listen.
5th.
5th.
Either the 5th or the 11th.
I make a motion. We have Alyssa put us in for that date for the work session with the city.
5th.
Is it the council? Council?
It's council.
I'm sorry, for which date?
The 5th.
5th.
Okay.
Do we have a second on that motion? Sure. Okay.
Who seconded?
Everybody.
John, got it.
The reason that say yes.
Yes.
Anybody say no? Okay. So we're on. Okay. In the last 10 minutes, why don't we go through the subcommittee readouts? And I want to preface this a little bit. With the change in the chair and all this, I'm going to probably have to pull away from the policy committee as being the committee chair. So we'll let that group decide who should be the new chair of it. But maybe we should also look at what we're doing in these committees too, and whether we should continue down the path of having those committees or reorganize, I guess is what I'm saying, and kind of reevaluate maybe. So let's think about that a little bit too, not necessarily at this meeting. But do you have anything to present, Laura, for the outreach group or comment?
And do you need a screen share, Laura?
She may not be able to because she's on her phone.
Oh, good point.
Oh, sorry, could you repeat that one more time?
Laura, did you have any updates on the energy outreach group meeting?
No, I think the big outreach effort is the event that's coming up. So that's putting all the energy into that right now.
Okay. Is what I'm trying
to. Is that the EV benefits? What's in it for me session, Laura?
Yes, that's correct. In partnership with Ryoka.
Is there a date for that?
Led by Ryoka. And so having the city help promote that will be, if the city's willing to, that's a conversation we need to have still. But I think that would be the big ask of the city right now.
Yeah, so Ryoka's having this event. It's on, it's kind of sponsoring this. Let me make sure I get the right date. Let me look at the calendar here. It's on the 25th at 6. It starts at 5 p.m. with the possibility of doing to drive an EV, by the way. So you can go there and drive an EV if you want. And then the meeting kicks off at 6, kind of talk about all the programs around EVs. Ryoka is sponsoring this. I'm gonna talk a little bit about electrification and Ryoka's mission at the beginning, and then there'll be several representatives from the state. Drive Clean Colorado will be there to talk about charging station. So it starts at 5 p.m. and goes through 8.
What day?
July 25th.
Where at?
Good point. Rawlings Library.
Thank you so much.
So we'll send out information, more details on that. We're getting the posters put together. That should be done this week. So we'll send that through the Energy Commission. This is a public meeting. It's not, it's not only for Ryoka membership. It's a public meeting. So.
May I just add a couple of things? So I'll just let you know that as part of the Panther Pride Fest that happens at Pueblo Community College, we are also going to partner with Drive Clean Colorado and do a ride and drive event there as well, and with PCC to highlight their solar installers program and have like I said, a ride and drive event where people can sign up to drive an EV. And so I can get that date for this group. I forgot that was on the calendar in August, I believe it is. And then I also, and I'm sorry, Laura, I know you and I kicked this back and forth a little bit, but I had an opportunity to talk with Haley, who is the PIO for the city. And one of the things the city has and does is they record kind of informational things that they can use on the public broadcast, like Channel 17. And they re-up that content from time to time. They're right now working through their contract. I think they're working with maybe Goal Academy now as opposed to PCC. I think they're working through that public broadcast. At least that's what Haley told me, is working through that new agreement. But once it's done, she's very, very open to letting us have a spot where we can do kind of a 15 or 30 minute segment where it's like EVs, what's in it for me? It would be kind of she could be the moderator. We could have our EV coordinator come in and talk generally about the benefits of EV. And then she can, because it's recorded, it will play, intermittently on Channel 17. And then you can also use those assets in social media to drive some traffic back to the city's webpage. So Haley was very, very interested in that. She asked me if I would write a script for that. And so that was one of the things that I have to do and owe to Haley.
You know, at this event on the 25th, we'd like Black Hills to participate too. So you know, so I think Laura's making those connections. So.
Yeah, I'm reaching out there to get that event as well. So if there's any way to follow up, see if he's willing to talk about Black Hills' program there, that would be great as well.
Okay. Another committee is the municipal energy use and generation.
Luckily, Andrew answered. I threw those questions in because he was talking about. So the first two parts of the energy use and the generation. So those we're covered. That I was able to cover that within his questions, and part of it that came from John. But I was going to ask Alan, was there anything you wanted to add from our committee?
No, I don't recall us even having a meeting for a while.
Well, we've talked on the phone about these things, and about everything we talked about. It seems like Alan really covered more, and we'll take your advice and maybe think about maybe moving or trying to reevaluate our objective, if that's all right. It's John. It's just us three now because Dave resigned. So, thank you.
I had from the policy committee, we had a couple slides I'd like to show. Alyssa, can you present those?
Yes, I'll print it. I will share it now.
Go right to the second one, I think, if you could. Yeah. So we've had a couple of meetings. We didn't really report out last week or last meeting because we didn't have the time, but I'm going to go through this really fast. So we talked about this already today, right? To evaluate pathways for the city to own generation assets if it makes sense. Again, it's a financial question, right? What's best for the city? We would also like to get a update on Black Hills ERP from the city's intervening attorney and Black Hills too. So, you know, in a future meeting to set that up. I don't know if we have time.
I can have somebody present on the clean energy plan. I don't know if you need the city attorney. I mean, you're certainly welcome to, but you know, that costs money.
Okay. Well, we wanted to see what his thoughts were on that.
Sure. So I will just tell the group, there was a unanimous settlement for our clean energy plan that is going to include 400 megawatts of additional renewable energy. I think it's 50 megawatts of battery storage, 50 or 90, I can't remember which. But I can have some regulatory folks. I know that we're going to start the RFP process third quarter of this year. So you're in phase 2 now? Correct. Yep, we're in phase 2 now.
You said 400 megawatts. 400 megawatts of renewable.
Yep.
I mean, that's pretty much the whole demand.
So that will bring us up. That'll bring us up to 70% renewable energy. Okay. Yeah.
Is that Turkey Creek?
So Turkey Creek actually fell apart, unfortunately. The developer could not deliver on the pricing that they agreed to.
So where do you go from here?
So we have to go through an RFP process. There will be developers.
So that's part of
that's part of phase 2. Yes, and that's what's going to happen, Tom, in like August of this year, September of this year. They're working on those RFPs right now.
So let's plan on having an update, Black Hills.
Okay.
And John, can you, if you can provide for us information on what percentage of that total can be locally owned through individual residents, businesses, or through community carding, so that utility scale for the settlements, that would be great to know.
Yeah, Laura, that's all utility scale. The segment that goes to individual ownership, like residents and otherwise, that's still going to be administered through the solar garden kind of initiatives. So I don't know if that completely answers your question.
I think it would be interesting to know how much rooftop solar, behind the meter solar is also out there. Is that something you
I actually have shared that number. I know that some of you may know Steve Andrews. He was actually very surprised and impressed about the number
So I'd be interested in.
I can get that. I don't know how old it is, but I'll see if I can get an updated number. I mean, it was a year old last I presented it.
Because there's a lot of activity, you know, new rooftop solar going up. I mean, there's like a couple thousand, permits being pulled a year.
You probably know, John, I'm a big advocate of why build it, 50 miles away from us. Why don't they look into putting smaller solar and batteries within communities like, on the east side, lower income, they could put a plot of land, they could put that with batteries. And then it's even better for an outage because, that line gets cut between us and that solar. We're in the same predicament as one of the units go down here.
What you described it as a microgrid, right?
And a lot of people, I was on the distribution engineering side. See, they're able to isolate things. So the whole world can go out. But if they have a solar garden out there and batteries out there, they can cut loose everything else and still run that community. So if they build, for example, if they build 10 of these 15 megawatts around here, it really helps them too because they get nicked for having outages. Well, you don't have outages with solar and batteries because guess what? Solar keeps the batteries charged, and when it's not setting.
This solar garden out by Dog Patch, some of the panels are broken, just falling off the rails. Some of the solar panels don't even rotate.
Yeah,
I'm really disappointed in the people that are running that thing.
But they're not maintaining it because you really solar. The hurricane that hit Florida, they didn't affect the solar. And some of those solar gardens down there.
I was going to say, Ken Taylor, I did check with Devin, and he said that they have not seen a noticeable degradation of the production. So that's a good thing. But I did ask him if I get contact information for the developer, and he said I will try. It's really hard because they actually sell the LLC. The LLC changes hands, and so trying to track down the owner is very difficult.
Let me know though. I'd like to make that phone call.
It's another thing in that contract, Andrew. Make sure they maintain it. That's the deal.
Yeah, because it's not.
Okay, I wanted to finish up on our report. Okay, I mean, this is all interesting stuff.
Oh yeah, but we're
past.
Should we go past our end?
Yeah, let's just do that.
My wife's going to be mad at you.
Let's do this real quickly. So there's an opportunity to start using the solar app for permitting, behind the meter solar, and it's really kind of a building code.
Using an app for the permitting.
There's a thing called Solar App Plus that Emerald is promoting. There's an opportunity to adopt this. There's some legislation passed. It's up there on the up there. But basically, there's grants out there to start doing this, and I was hoping that we could talk to Pueblo Regional Building Department to do a pilot there. So we need to make that connection somehow. This building up proposal is like
send me a short little.
Yeah, you're on the board.
Yeah, I'm on the board. Send me a description of what it is you want. I'll get it. Maybe you can or somebody can do a presentation to a regional building.
We'll get you that information.
Okay.
This build up thing is not going to happen. There's just so much money out there, that we need to see, what our capacity is to take advantage of it. We wanted to also, make sure that we kind of tune our ordinances in the city to kind of promote net zero buildings, to promote the adoption of EV. Not to get some crazy bid, it's going to cost a fortune to make, but something reasonable to kind of train the construction community to start thinking that direction. And the last thing is we really feel like this, this part-time person is going to be great. It's just not enough. Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I need more reinforcement. I'm just telling.
You're doing a good job, man.
I'm completely looking forward to having this person come in. We got three potential applicants that we're going to talk to on the 14th. So any help will be great. But, So they want to get somebody engaged who's got a background and understanding of the issues so we can get them going in the right direction and working on these issues directly.
So it'll be within Public Works.
It'll be in the mayor's office position. They may physically sit somewhere else. I don't know. We're going to figure that out. But yeah.
And you're saying you're doing interviews next week?
They're after the 14th. So by the next meeting, you'll have some idea if one was selected.
Do you have a pay range?
There is a wage. I don't know it off the top of my head.
I think it was around 40 or 50 for part-time. Yeah, I think it was. Was it?
I don't think.
I think it was like a.
Maybe I'm thinking of applying. No, I'm just teasing. I think it was that
In my
high.
head, I was thinking around the $30 an hour.
Maybe it was 30. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. $30 an hour.
There may have been a range.
Well,
I'm
thinking full time.
You're coming over, is that what you?
I'm thinking full time.
Well, I mean, there's just so much opportunity to take advantage of, that we need the capacity to take advantage of it. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll.
One very short thing. Jan, you had asked about taking building tours. We tried to set something up and everybody's schedule was a little off. I'm not done. I just haven't picked that back up. So I still want to get you out there. I think also after Monday, the results of the initial building assessment stuff, maybe that'll be a good time.
Well, what you've done really, the whole idea is to get over what you're doing, buddy. And for us kind of to see some, but maybe we could do that on a little different because, as you know, we were thinking just us three to see it. If you try to include the whole group, you'll never be able to get a date to.
Yeah, everybody was just a little spread.
Yeah. No, you're doing wonderful, and that really worked right into what we were trying to accomplish.
I'll send that back out. Pick another day for it.
Good.
Okay, I think we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that sounds.